It was a diplomatic crisis that threatened to upend Turkey's relations with many of its NATO allies. But a statement released by the US and several other embassies has diffused the standoff that had been brewing for days. The crisis was sparked last week after the ambassadors from 10 countries, including the US, called for the release of Osman Kavala. The businessman has been jailed for his alleged role in the 2013 Gezi protests and the 2016 failed coup. Over the weekend, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said he ordered the ambassadors to be expelled for violating diplomatic protocols. On Monday, the embassies involved went on to release statements reiterating their commitment to Article 41 of the Vienna Convention. The article states that diplomats will abide by a host country's laws and not interfere in its internal affairs. That appears to have been enough for all sides to de-escalate tensions. But the long-term fallout from this latest spat remains unclear, after Ankara said it would not refrain from taking further actions against attacks on its sovereignty. And to break down the long-term consequences of this diplomatic row, joining me from Istanbul is Murat Aslan. He's a researcher at SETA, a political and policy think tank. And from Innsbruck, Austria, Klaus Jurgens. He is a political analyst who specializes in Turkey's relations with the West. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Murat, now that a major crisis has been averted, what's next?
Well, today it seems that we have calmed down because there is a letter again submitted from the embassies of the other countries that it's actually a statement, not a letter, that they will be complying with the terms of Vienna Convention that requires the embassies not to be involved in internal affairs within the limits of non-interference,
yes,
and also respect the sovereign rights. So what comes next? I think first we have to calm down.
Okay, so Klaus, what will be the long-term fallout from this spat look like?
Well, I think it will be remembered for quite some time. Now, I made a few short notes. It's such a hot topic still. I couldn't believe it, first of all. It reminded me, in a very bizarre sense, 2013, 2016, what is going on? And I said, what are they up to? And now I'm sitting in Austria on Republic Day. This morning, I just told myself, imagine something like this would happen over here. The Turkish ambassador plus 9 others would interfere in the Austrian judiciary, and exactly the same would happen. Turkey was right to react in this manner. Now the situation has been diffused, but could it happen again? Shall everything be just put under the carpet? I think the attitude of a number of countries and their representatives towards Turkey as a modern democracy must literally change for the better, so that this cannot happen again. There will be some long-term implications, unfortunately.
So, Murat, do you think this issue has swept under the carpet? And, I mean, do you believe that this issue has further eroded the trust between Turkey and the Western world? And what should be done to rebuild this trust?
Well, there are two different dimensions of losing trust. The first one is, for sure, there is a great escalation between the West and Turkey in terms of allegations like shift of access, for instance. But this incident, contributed more. But the second thing is more prevalent and very important for the international politics. Now, the states that see themselves as the core of the all international system will try to form up a group of states through, ambassadors, which pretends to be a governing body of the other state. And they would deliver letters just to impose or dictate what they want. And it's a clear challenge to the Westphalian system that makes state at the epicenter of all political activities, because it was Westphalian system that was designed by the European powers and still in charge with the international politics. So I think losing trust is not only about, having ties with Turkey or not, but, state system that is being circulated in international arena. That's the problem.
So I just want to quickly go over what's been at the heart of this dispute, which is Article 41 from the Vienna Convention. The treaty states that the head of the mission and the administrative and technical staff deployed there are expected to abide by the laws and regulations of the receiving state, in this case, Turkey. It also states that diplomatic staff have a duty not to interfere in internal or domestic affairs. And finally, the convention says the host country can declare any diplomatic official persona non grata without having to explain its decision. So, Klaus, how critical was Article 41 in helping all sides resolve this spat before it escalated into a full-blown diplomatic crisis?
Luckily, those 10 ambassadors and, of course, the host governments, I come back to this point in a second, if I may, reread the article and understood. They all went through rigorous training before becoming a diplomat, and how to represent a country without interfering in your host nation's domestic affairs is one of the key selection criteria. Now, what wonders me and what has not been discussed, we spoke briefly about it yesterday in the news, but what wonders me a lot is this cannot happen overnight. This is not an old men or old women's bridge playing club who all of a sudden say, let's meet and let's write a letter. There must have been some preparation. Someone must have started it. And I would be really, really interested to find out two things. Who actually started it? And yes, with all modesty, did Chancellor Angela Merkel have any clue while she was visiting what is going to unfold a few days later?
Okay, so it seems the US, Murat, played a leading role in the original statement and the one that was released yesterday. I mean, was that a coordinated move? What's your take on that?
Well, let's just observe the sample cases. For instance, Libya. The countries, 5 countries, led by the US ambassador, drafted 3 different letters to the GNA and GNU of today. What does that mean? The governments of these countries has decided to deliver a message as a manifestation that they will have to, hold the elections. Well, the same thing actually happened in Turkey. A group of states organized by a single or maybe 2 or 3 of them just motivated to act all together accordingly.
Yes.
On the other hand, there's one reality that should be kept in mind. Such kind of attitudes are not only about the ambassadors, but also the governments, because neither of the ambassadors can act on his or her behalf.
Yes.
But within the coordinating efforts of their foreign ministries.
So, Klaus, what's at stake for other countries who followed suit in retrieving the US embassy statement on Kavala? And why would Canada and New Zealand be interested in such a move?
This is one of the puzzling questions. I took a close look at the list again. Now, one country, I mentioned it very discreetly, with all due modesty, yesterday. I researched quite a bit about the Swedish government, the Swedish foreign ministry, and having had, for example, contacts with representatives of the HDP party, others saying the YPG is definitely not an offshoot of the PKK, and this is coming from Washington, and other countries seem not to actually completely understand the wider picture. I fully agree with my esteemed colleague here that the foreign ministries must have had some knowledge about it. It is otherwise completely impossible. Now, the foreign ministries are thus to be the real interlocutor here. What can be done? G20, COP26 is coming up. I heard about a very proactive Turkish diplomacy over there, for example, in the Turkish pavilion in Glasgow soon. Now, I think Turkey will be stronger. Turkey has shown it is definitely not to be messed around, and absolutely rightly so. Coming back to my point, Republic Day in Austria right now here. I only try to imagine what would have been the public and the government and the president's reaction here if 9+1 would tell, for example, to President Van der Bellen, your judiciary is not independent, it's all in a mess, we are the ambassadors, we have a right to tell you, do this and this and this in this case. That way, huge outcry, public outcry.
So, Murat, as Klaus briefly mentioned, the G20 summit in Rome is set for this weekend, and President Erdogan is scheduled to attend. And many of these countries who are involved in the spat will be there, including the US President. Biden, who is still expected to meet with Erdogan. What do you think the mood will be at the summit?
The circulated agenda for the previous meetings at the EU level was based on positive agenda in terms of relations with Turkey, as you remember. So this meeting in the weekend is somehow should have been built upon positive agenda that how they can promote the relations in terms of cooperation and resolve the disputes. But today they have a new item to be discussed. That means it will add another complexity. And I think it's not fair because Turkey wants to have a good level of relations with the West, while the West always imposes something complicated and to be dealt with a political escalation. So I think we should focus on the future, not existent problems that will waste time of both.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk.